All right, we are live. We've gone live a little bit early. I'm going to explain that in a second. Also, I'm going to apologize. I'm getting over a cold, so every once in a while I've got a little bit of a cough that may be unsettling. When that starts to happen, I will try to mute myself and give Stuka Joe the full camera. Speaking of that, we have Stuka Joe with us today. Wonderful channel, beautifully done, engrossing video playthroughs, and he's just started doing some live things and stuff. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Jose.
Okay, thank you, Bart, the chief. Well, my name is Jose Ruiz. I have the Stuka Joe channel, so most people know me by Stuka Joe. I've been a war gamer since I was 12 or 13 years old and started collecting a ton of games. I don't know if this happened to you, and gradually but surely started becoming a game collector and less of a player. Yes. So one day I said, man, I'm looking at that closet, man, of games, and the games are meant to be played. There's not a lot of war gamers in Puerto Rico. If anybody who's watching Puerto Rico, please call me. I would love to play a war game with somebody. So I said, well, I was looking at the internet, and I saw at that time Marco Arnaudo, Enrico Viglino, known as Callendale, and Joe Stedman. They were doing videos on war games.
Yes.
And I said, hey, do. And I did my first video in the summer of 2013 was Lion of Ethiopia, a magazine game by Command Magazine. And people, they liked what I was doing. So that encouraged me to do more stuff. And now it's been, 5 years later. Mm-hmm. Got about 4,500 subscribers. And and I love what the channel does, and I have some pretty good ideas in my head of where I want to take the channel and how it can help the hobby. So that's in essence how I started with this and what I like to do with the channel.
Yes, and the videos you do are so. First of all, I know how much work they take, and we may talk about that in a little bit. But for example, your B-17 playthrough was not just a standard playthrough. I'd seen a couple of your videos, but then you'd reached out to me and several other Wargame reviewers and just said, "Can I have your permission to use your likeness? I'm going to put you on the crew of this B-17." Yeah. And to this day, I went and watched a few more of those. Of course, I had to watch episode 7, which is where I won't ruin it, but I don't survive that mission.
Yeah.
So go watch that. Go watch that series. I still love the way Joe Stedman, the ball gunner, pops out from underneath whenever he's going to take a shot.
Yeah. The B-17 thing, I took a risk there. In Puerto Rico, we have a phrase in Spanish, say, mejor pedir perdón que pedir permiso, which in English is translated, it's better to ask for forgiveness than for permission. So originally, that original crew, I didn't ask for permission for anybody. I didn't want people saying no. But then afterwards, for the second crew, because the first bomber, went down in flames, for the second crew, I asked for permission for the people.
Now, maybe that is it, because I do remember you had Judd on there from Hamtag and also Greg, and maybe maybe over the years, see, that's how bad my memory is, but I remember just loving it. And so to the point, which is back to the board games, not only was it so entertaining to watch how you played the game and did the playthrough, but it showed exactly what happens in B-17. You get attached to these crewmen, and in this case, by using all these YouTubers and reviewers, even more so. And it's just to see the story unfold. I always say B-17 is, well, it's definitely not a simulation. It's a game, but it's an experiential game. Mm-hmm. And the way you brought it to life and you added in the machine guns, I mean, I was just watching it again. I'm telling you, I went through all of them again last night, just prepping to be with you here today. And I thought, that is so wonderful. Now, I know how long editing can take just with a review that I may do, or even with a ham tag. How long was your editing with let's just use B-17?
Well, at that time I was using another software program with Sony Vegas. The editing part of it it took some time. Sometimes I used overlays like PowerPoint. I would show like a picture of the bomber formation. There's a part at the beginning with debriefing of the missions. So I created some in PowerPoint, some images there. The good thing, I would use them all over and over again with changing the different targets. So it takes a while. I realized that my hobby is really like 3 in 1. It's wargaming, but then it's filmmaking and editing also is part of the hobby for me. And then there's the thing about arts and craft. If you notice my videos, especially B-17, I had to create the counters for the crew members with their faces. So it was a lot of obtaining the photograph, cutting it from, and pasting it on a sticker, stuff like that. Doing getting the bomber, and I placed the bomber on top of it was like a picture of the sky, so it would look like it's flying, stuff like that. So I feel like, I tell people, it's like, I feel like Steven Spielberg but with a budget of $20. How do I get to do this? And I use props, and that's how when you think about the presentation, you just can't use sometimes what the game brings in order to do something like that. You got to go a little extra, and it's good because it gets your creative juices flowing.
Definitely. Now, I'm going to, I forgot to do one thing, which is I haven't muted myself, but I forgot to pull out the pop-up chat menu so I can see what folks are saying. And now I've got it. Let me get this thing fully popped out here so that there's I could talk you through it as well, but I'll read them for both of us.
Sure.
And we'll see who's on here. Let's see. There we go. All right. So first of all, of course, Dan Pancaldi's in. No enemies here. He says, "Hey, Chief." And I'm trying to give that extra little "Hey, Chief" kind of thing that he does. Let's see. John Connor here, but going to take a quick shower. Well, that's always good to know, John. It's always good to be clean when you're watching anything that I'm doing on my show. Dan had to pop in with a comment on that. Chats 101. He says Stuka Joe for president. So there you go.
I was born in Spain. I don't qualify. Sorry. There goes that.
That's it. That part's out. You and Schwarzenegger.
I'm an American citizen, but I was born in Spain. So
that's it. You and Schwarzenegger, you both suffer from that. You can't go all the way to president. Let's see. No enemies here again. Dan says, I think we need B-17 part 2. I think he wants to be on that plane. Yeah. He wants to be on the crew there. The original Grognard gives us a thumb up. So, guys, I'm going to be watching the chat side here. I'll keep that popped out. I'll pause every once in a while and work back to your questions. Now, back on point. So you and me both started playing war games when we were younger. What I remember mine, and I think, did you mention your first war game, or what was your very first?
Actually, it was 2. I was, I think, 13 years old. My uncle, he's an American. He was married. He's married to my aunt, who's Puerto Rican. So he's from Philadelphia. So he says, "Hey, we're going to go to Chicago, to the Chicago Museum of Art. Do you want to come with us?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" Went to Chicago, went to the Museum of Art. Don't remember anything about the Museum of Art. Then he took me to a department store, and there was this wall of war games. This must have been 1974, 1975. Wall of Avalon Hill war games. At that point in time, my experience with war games, if you can call them in a sense, was, do you remember the Milton Bradley games? There was Battle Cry, it was just a Civil War game. You got Dogfight, World War I, Broadside, War of 1812, and there was Hit the Beach.
Yes.
That was my wargaming experience up to that point. So when I saw these games that were like more involved, these maps and counters and NATO symbols, I just went crazy. So he said, "Hey, pick 2." So I picked France 1940, which is really a curious game because it's really an SPI game designed by James Dunnigan. The graphics is Redmond Simonson, but published by Avalon Hill with a mounted board. So it's a really weird beast. And I picked Luftwaffe, which is the aerial campaign over Germany. And I remember I played Luftwaffe with my uncle first time we had a great time, and then later on I said, man, these planes were great because they were flying in the air for a whole year. We forgot to land them after each mission. So that's where the screw ups with war games with rules started very early on, and that's part of the hobby, I suppose. But those were my 2 first games.
There you go. My very first game was actually B-17, Queen of the Skies, 1983. I'd started reading heavily in 6th grade, and I was reading a lot of World War II fiction. I don't know if it was the TV series Combat or whatever that got me into World War II, but I was reading all kinds of things, and I'd read a lot of things on the 8th Air Force. And I remember buying that game and thinking, wow, if I can, really get in and play this, and it's designed solitaire. I grew up in the mountains of Colorado, and I knew nobody else that was playing war games. So, and it was just so deep and thematic that it really got me in. My second one was Ambush, which I went and purchased again, and same kind of theme as far as thematic and more game over and story over simulation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which style do you lean toward? Do you have a wargaming style in general that you like more than most?
I don't have a particular style. I like to play war games from all different eras, not just World War II. But I think if I can define my style, right now it's the one mapper style, because that's all the space that I have right now, especially the film games. Now I've been able to set up my gear for filming war games. I use a magnetic board, which is 3 feet by 4 feet wide, which will accommodate some 2 mappers that have some overlapping. But I really don't have those boundaries. Don't play much tactical games for some reason. I think I lean more to the strategic and operational games. But it's not that I don't like tactical games. I like them, but I feel like tactical games are more enjoyable if you have a live opponent on the other side, because sometimes they're hard to play solo, especially with opportunity fire and stuff like that.
Sure.
But I'm open to everything. I mean, I remember in the 70s when I was growing up, I had a different attitude. If it didn't have hexes and counters, it wasn't a war game.
Mm.
And nowadays, I think wargaming has evolved, and we have, I consider it more historical board gaming, because we have games that are not war games per se. Like, for example, take Churchill is, even though it's a World War II themed game, the emphasis is on the conferences and the diplomacy between the powers. You have Mark Herman's also the 1860 game is not a war game; it's a prelude to World War, to the Civil War, and I think that's the history is really what sucks me into these games. So it doesn't have to be a war game per se, but if it has history, I'm gonna be interested in it.
Love it. Michael Vincenti has a question for you. Jose, any chance to make something like you did with B-17 with new games like Skies Above the Reich, B-17 Leader, Target for Today, which is a more simulation remake of B-17 Queen of the Skies, etc.? Any ideas on that?
Well, yeah. Well, I think I have more time now these days, and I've always believed that the war games deserve to be shown up close, and I think something that I really like about war games that I would like to do more videos is the narrative type of war game. Like I can do a playthrough, but I'm not going to tell you now we roll on the 5-to-1 combat result table, roll a 6 and get the result. No, I'll be narrating what happens as the game tells the story. So, and I think that can be done in a number of games, not just tactical games. I mean, I think the best example is B-17 Queen of the Skies. In that game, I showed, if the viewer, you could see the tables that I was using and the die results, but I would never say, oh, and the die roll was a 6. And blah. No. I would just narrate what's going on. And that game has enough detail that it tells its own story. And I think we have a lot of games coming out from different companies that can do that. And that's something that I'm looking forward to. I also did, that was sort of the same thing, the Zombies, Dawn of the Zeds 3rd edition.
Sure.
Which also, that one is kind of a narrative style. It has some results and stuff, and sometimes I talk about the game, but it's something that I want to cultivate, because I think that the video media, the video format can do a lot for wargaming beyond the normal unboxings and reviews that we're used to seeing. I think it can be taken to different levels.
Yeah, very much so. And I think that's definitely your gift, and the enjoyment that I've gotten from what you do is you get so thematic as you move through the game. And I think it really brings it to life. And one thing I really appreciate really from all reviewers is that all these different styles, I think, open this world of wargaming. I've had a lot of folks and other gamers say, you know, do you see our hobby graying, getting older? And I say, I do, but there's a lot of folks coming into some of these new games that are younger too. When I go to cons, you'll see guys in their 20s and 30s, not as much as we have, but that's because they didn't have this whole Euro experience. It was more Avalon Con stuff when I was a kid.
But I think part of that is, okay, we are a niche, right? But I mean, when you look at it worldwide, I have subscribers in Vietnam, in the Philippines. I have subscribers all over Europe. There's people that say, hey, if you come to Germany, you know, let me know. You can stay at my house. Jesus, yeah. Thanks a lot. But so the thing is, I think that people who are interested in war games are, you know, they're interested in the games for certain reasons. I know some people are competitive and they want to compete and for you know, winning and that sort of thing. But you have that in every place. But I think people in wargaming are more interested in the history that drives the game.
Yes, I agree.
And as to the video format, I think we can still do a lot more in showing the detail, because when that first video that I did, you know, is very crude, but even in that first video, I realized I wanted to do videos with multiple clips and showing the game close. So it's not just me saying, oh, here are the Italians attacking the Ethiopians across the river. You are seeing it. You don't have to trust me. You're seeing what's going on, and you see the details. And wargaming, there's a lot of details that drive the strategy, and I think we can do a lot more to capture that. And that's what I'm trying to do with my channel. I got some videos that are showing mechanics of play, others extended examples of play, stuff like that can really help and show the game up close. Because I mean, these games are works of art. When you look at those maps and counters, where compared to the 70s when I was growing up, and there's not enough people doing videos of war games compared to the number of war games that are coming out.
Sure.
We have games in boxes and games in magazines, and part of my goal in my channel is to encourage more people, and that's why I show the equipment that I use, and I gladly answer emails for technical questions and everything, because I think we can do a lot more, and I want to encourage people to do videos of war games, because it always behooves me. The Eurogamers, you look at their videos, and they're really incredible quality videos, and I'm going, how come the Eurogamers can do these tremendous videos, and us war gamers, you know, we're still doing the handheld camera from satellite view and the motion thing, the one take and everything. We're going to do the whole video in one take thing, and we can't do editing. And it dawned to me, listen, Eurogamers don't have to worry about supply lines, zones of control, line of sight, nothing. So they have plenty of time to learn about video editing. That's what I figure. But I think the video format can do a lot to enhance and promote the hobby.
Well, that's one nice thing with No Enemies Here with Dan Pancaldi. He is now coalescing and giving snippets of not only board game news or war game news, but also all the different reviewers. I asked him, I'm like, how do you do that? And he says, oh, that's a whole hobby in and of itself, is watching all the content and then pulling out and talking about it. So
let me tell you how I met Dan Pancaldi. This is going to be interesting. When I did the B-17 Queen of the Skies series, what was it? If you take a look at the first episode, for some reason YouTube deleted the sound, because I think I used one of Benny Goodman's song or something for something. But I had done the first, what was it? The first chapter. Let me see. Thing is, he had seen one of my videos, and I had one constant musical theme, which is the theme from my alma mater, University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez, which I use, and I use for all my videos. So he calls me. He notices that I'm going to do something for B17 because I announced it, and he goes, and he asked me a question about Patton's Best, because that's another one of those games. And I had to look for the game, and I answered the question. And then he says, listen, I'm a wargamer and I'm a musician. And he probably noticed I was using the same tune for all my videos. He said, oh, do you want me to compose music for your videos? And I said, hey, sure. So he started composing music for the videos. And the first music I used it wasn't even for a war game. It was for, what's the name of that car racing game by GMT? I did a one. They have just went blank now.
I know what you're talking about too.
Yeah, and so that was the first one, and from then on, he's become a friend, even though I haven't been able to go there where he lives in Canada and give this guy a hug. He's a tremendous guy. And I encourage him to listen. There's a way you can help out actually with wargaming hobby in doing videos. You have your music, your original music, and just putting music to sometimes to an interlude of show a game, show the music. That's something that's nice to watch, and then you can show the games that are coming out. I told him that there's a lot of good podcasters out there which I listen to, but the podcast format has a limitation. It's all audio. You can't see anything. So if you just show the games and announce them and announce the cons and whatever the people the reviewers are doing, I think people will be interested. So.
Well, and he definitely took your advice. I love his actual interludes where he's got his music and it plays over while there's stuff showing on the camera.
And it's something I look forward to now. I don't know. I eat breakfast in the morning, like at 8, Saturdays 8 or 9, and I go to this place. Here's this panaderia, this bread shop. I always watch the show there. It's something that it's now like part of my life.
Yes.
And see who he's gonna have in the introduction, or the 4 questions, which are really like 40 questions, this kind of stuff. So I'm really happy that he's doing it, and people are liking it too.
So Dave Doogie, I think is the name. I had a neighbor with that same name, said Thunder Alley by GMT. So that
Thunder Alley, yes, that's correct.
And then we've got a few more things come in here. Let's see. James Brazil says the history does make a game that much more enjoyable. I agree 100%. Dave, again, he wanted to know what's the game off to my side, and someone did answer, said Raid on Saint Nazaire. I think I'm saying that right. Of course, B17. And Jose or Stuka Joe did a wonderful, I wanted to play this so much when I was a kid, and I never picked it up. And then I found it a little bit later in life, and the map is so gorgeous. And you did a wonderful playthrough video on that as well early on.
Yeah, that was I didn't get to finish it because other circumstances were happening. I had to pick the game up, but I still may do take that one for another ride. That I got a blow up of that map, and from BGG they have the map, so I was able to use that map, and that's a tremendous game. I mean, it's a suicide mission for the commandos.
Right.
The times I've played it, I mean, it's really bad, but it's really interesting because you have that part when they're arriving with the flotilla and see if they're detected, and then the second part when they're debarking and then going up after the objectives, and it's a really wonderful game.
Yeah, very much so. Let's see some more from Galenus66. Joe, your videos of the raid on Saint Nazaire are better than movies or of documentaries. You should direct movies. Yes. Let's see. James Brazil says, well, I just subscribed to Joe's channel. That's a good move. I am more of a Euro gamer, but these videos sound intriguing, and they are.
Thank you.
Let's see. Itinerant hobbyist. I'm late, but another vid with YT Game Studs. Thank you. If there's such a thing, sure. YouTube Game Studs. I think Stuka Joe's at the top there. Dan's got to be in there with the stud name. He would be mad if he wasn't. Let's see. Who would have thought 10 years ago we would be watching a bunch of dudes play board games instead of TV or sports? Love it. I have an idea on that. I actually think that TV produced it's so cookie cutter and polished, and it's not, it's just, and it now has to apply to everybody. And this movement of social media allows you to come in and see exactly what you want in many different formats and get to know the actual person. And it doesn't have to be this overproduced. Matter of fact, I think your art, as you talk about it, your project as you made it, I don't know, almost more enjoyable. It was the work and the actual love you put into having the plane and the flak, and I think that's part of the charm, honestly.
I think people appreciate it, and the great thing about our hobby, which I know we're in the computer age, and people play a lot of computer games, and I know because my sons play Counter-Strike. When my older son is here in Puerto Rico with my other son who's in Florida, and they play. And I play. I've been playing in LAN parties. That's fine.
Sure.
But there's nothing like sitting down on a table with a couple of friends. You have some beers, and you play a four-player game, and you trash talk the other guy. That's part of our hobby too. It's not just pushing the counters. And I noticed that also. I went to Consum World. The people were so great there in Consum World, and I learned a couple of games, and it's. Nothing beats that, and the computer I don't think we'll see in our lifetimes beating that experience, because even though they call it virtual reality, it's still not reality. Reality is sitting down with you, and I'm gonna encircle those Germans in Stalingrad, and there's nothing you can do about it, and we're having a great time. And that's why this is important. And I've seen more young people coming to it because I think they want to experience that of playing a board game, with somebody, with a live person, and just enjoying the experience.
100%. I agree. And it's funny you mentioned I played tons of Counter-Strike, and then the World War II mod off of that was Day of Defeat. I was on that all the time. But what you mentioned is so true. It's games in general and war games specific, is that I've even invited coworkers. So I'm a sergeant on the police department, but I've invited some coworkers over, and one of them said, well, when I said I play games, it means I play these online games, and my buddies are all in their own homes and everything. I said, well, come on over, bring your wife over. We'll play we actually played some lighter Euro games, and my wife plays as well. And it was so interesting because when we were done playing, he said, we got some wine and some pizza, and we just played. And he said, that was so fun because when I actually did this little move on you, I could see, I got excited before I did it. And this is a Euro game. And then I got you, and you were like, oh, and so what he decided to do was he told all his online buddies, hey, instead of our normal game hookup, why don't you all come over to my house? I'll order pizza. I'll have some beer, and we're going to play this. I think he used Battlestar Galactica or something that had that, that hidden traitor thing. And I guess they were kind of giving her a time, but if they, turned down free beer and pizza. And he saw that same magic happen with them. And they were literally saying, wow, sitting right next to you when I knew I was actually getting ready to screw you over with this move was just so special. And it started, a whole group that they did they still do video games, but they also do the board game stuff. So you're so right that physical connection is, I don't think it's going to go away.
No, I don't think so. And I'm seeing it. I saw a lot of young people in Consum World. Also, I think I even played a first game that I showcased there was it's a Euro game, but it's based on the killing Hitler. It's called Black Orchestra. We had a young fellow there playing with us.
Yes,
we had a great time. And it's I think it's something that it's it's never going to die. Actually, playing face to face is great. But the reality of a war gamer is that we're spread out all over the world, that sometimes we can't find anybody to play a game with. So there's a lot of solo play. And that's why we have a lot of solo games or ways of playing games solitaire also. So that's part of our hobby. But that's something I like to cultivate also. And I think I want to push forward with my channel to bring more people to show, to do videos of war games, because I think the games deserve it, and the work that is put into them. I recently helped with the cards for one game by Legion War Games, which is called The Great Game. So Randy Lean, who's the head of the company, asked me to do the cards, and I did them. And man, the work that goes into producing a game is just incredible. So I think they deserve to be shown up close.
I agree. Some more questions that came in, and then a request that I'll get to from Dan here, which you and I talked about going into. But first, Keith Talbot says face-to-face is best. Let's see. Galena 66, the crazy bravery of the English commandos involved in the raid on Saint Nazaire. I agree. It gives him the same thrill and goosebumps as the closing credits from Braveheart. And then he talks about they fought like warrior poets. Dave Doogie, hopefully, again, let me know if I'm pronouncing the last name wrong. There's no social contract with multiplayer games on computers. Brings out the monsters and people. And, to a certain extent, I agree. Very true. Whoops, whole bunch just popped in and moved my screen here. Hold on. Talks about long-term friends being made. Michael Het says, hi, Joe. Thanks for all the videos and taking the time to elaborate your solo CDG method. Looking forward to any future refinements of the method and finding new ways and games in which to utilize it.
Okay, we can talk about that. Yeah, sure.
Okay. And then, of course, Dan, and then there's some other stuff I'll come back to in a moment, but Dan Pancaldi wants you to talk about some of your musical side. And I know you're in a band with your brothers, and so let's hear some things about that.
Well, we played last night. I have a band with my brothers. We're four brothers. I'm the oldest brother. And so I play the keyboards and I sing some of the songs. Then the one who's next brother, he's a guitar player. He sings also. Then the next brother is the drummer. He doesn't sing, thank God. And he plays the drums. And then the little brother, I'm 17 years older than him. My dad and my mother had him looking for the girl, but then came another brother. So he plays keyboards, and he's the one who's always late to the gigs. We call him Mick Jagger. But he's the little brother. What the hell can you do? And then we have a bass player who is a real close friend, who is the only professional musician, man. And it helps when the bass player is a kick-ass bass player, man. He just carries the whole thing, and so Sammy is his name. So we play about maybe 8 times a year, and in Christmas we play a lot. And the thing is, I was planning on going to that convention by Compass Games, which is actually this weekend in Connecticut. I wanted to go, but then my brother said, "Hey, man, we have 2 gigs that weekend, so you're going to ruin this thing." And I said, "No, I can't ruin this thing for you guys." So I put off that convention. So we play basically, the classics, Sweet Home Alabama. We play Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. We play Beatles, Rolling Stones, Billy Joel, Elton John.
Cool.
And then we play some rock in Spanish. I don't know. You've probably heard Despacito all over the world, right?
My youngest son has Down syndrome. He loves Despacito.
No, you got to play that. So the crowd loves Despacito. So we played Despacito. We played some other music in Spanish. We play that. That's a song called Clocks by, what's the name of the band? Green Day, is it? Or no, not Green Day. It's Clocks, the one that goes da na 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 na. But we played a salsa version, so that's interesting too. So it's a great way of releasing tension, and it's an excuse for all the brothers to meet. I think if we didn't have, I wouldn't see my brothers as often if we didn't have the band. So it's great. So I'm gonna keep on doing it until, like Mick Jagger said, until he falls down and has a heart attack. So like, the Rolling Stones keep playing, right? So
that's
why
perfect.
can't we?
That's perfect. That is, yeah. And I think I love those. Well, first of all, I love that it's not only your music, but it's you're bringing your brothers together, because that's, like you said, there's no better thing than to have the ties that bind.
Yeah, it's great. We have a lot of fun, and now we have a female singer that she sings in like half of the gigs with us too. So the band is growing. So
Wow. We'll see you on tour through the U.S. sometime in 2020.
No, I don't think so. But some viewers said, "Hey, post a clip on your website." I said, "Yeah, well, from last night I couldn't get a clip, but I don't want to lose subscribers, you know."
You wouldn't. I'm telling you, folks love that. I was even watching some of your videos when Hurricane Maria came through. Yeah. And of course, my wife was like, "What are you watching?" Oh my goodness, look at that palm tree that's down. So, and
if I get a hold of a clip, I'll put it somehow. Like in a video update, I can probably put a half of a song or something. Let's see.
That would be great. There was a great question from Kabuki Kid. What are the shining gems of 2018 so far? I've got one in mind, but do you have?
Wait a minute, the shining gems?
Yep, back to games.
Oh, man, let me see. I got some back there. Oh, boy.
Now, are those games on the couch? Are those ones that you're getting ready to play, or is that just your storage shelves are spilling over?
That storage shelves are spilling over. Those are the ones that, you know, sometimes I just want to look at a game, and I take a look at a game. The shining gems. I like that Pavlov's House game.
Oh,
I've seen some videos on it, so I wanted to try that. That game, the Europe in Turmoil, which is a card-driven game, always interests me. I love card-driven games. What else is coming out? I know Carl Parari has a new game on the no retreat system, which I pulled out. I got the War of the Worlds. What else do I have? Oh, the Night Fighter Ace. That looks interesting.
Were you able to play Skies Above the Reich yet from GMT?
I have it in shrink wrap. At the Consume World, the guys there were really kind to show me the game around, so I got a sense of the game. Having problems with the mic. Okay, but so that's one that's really. I mean, there's so many games. That's why I tell you, it's impossible to cover them. And I mean, you can do an unboxing, but beyond that, you know, I think people appreciate showing, you know, some details in the game. So I got a ton of those games that came out in 2018. There's I saw a bunch of people playing Cataclysm, which is interesting at the con. So I don't know what really to tell you. If you notice, I don't do reviews of games. I don't stand in front of the camera and say, "Hey, I like this game. I didn't like this game," because normally I don't play them enough for me to give an informed opinion. What I like to do is show how they play.
Sure.
Because then you watch it and you know what you like and you say, "Yeah, this game's not for me," or "No, this game's not for me." So I think that's how I help more. Now, if we can go to the CDGs, the CDG solo system method, that if you've been following the channel, that's a method that I came up with to play CDG solitaire. CDGs, you know, without the cards, you can't play them, and playing them solo in the classic way, which is with all cards face up, is really a headache, because when you play a side, then you go to play the other side, and you know the whole set of cards that the first side has, so you're trying to forget or pretend you don't know. So I developed this way of playing the game. When you play a side, you can't automatically select any card that you have, and not all of your cards are face up. So you roll a die, and now I'm using this method that uses one single die, which gives you the card options. You select the card, and you play it, and then you fill the space with a card face down. So when you play the other side, that first side that you played, you don't know what all the cards are there. So and people, I've gotten a lot of great feedback. And I this idea of the video streaming that I did yesterday, it gave me an idea of how to, you know, I could probably do like a brainstorming session, and I'm gonna play live stream one turn of or two turns of Europe in Turmoil, and then I'll play it using my gear there, the camera. It's gonna be a pretty steady shot. And people can tune in and say, "Well, Joe, I think you have to fine tune this part here." And people can just, you know, contribute that way. And that may be something that I would like to try out.
No, I think that would be great. Yeah, especially your style and the way you're playing and getting in, and then your ability to chat back and forth with folks. And it's a whole different idea. I love that idea.
For example, we could call them, I don't know, CDG Fridays, right? And every Friday, I'm going to play a CDG using the method. and I'm going to play like 2 turns. I don't want people to be watching the whole thing for 4 hours or 3 hours, right? Just 2 or 3 turns, see what happens, and that way we can do like the tweak sheet for each one of these games. I have call it the CDG source book. It's in the pages of Paths of Glory with the materials there for the CDG solo method, and it has the rules for the solo method, which are really short. It's really easy. And then it has a tweak sheet for each game because CDGs are not all equal. They all have their particular rules. And I could see myself doing like a video live streaming with people testing the CDG method on a game, people contributing. It could be like a brainstorming session. It would be great. You have from the comfort of your home. If you're watching, you can type in, "Hey, Joe, I think this should be this way," and then I could publish them the tweak sheet. So that's something that I was thinking that the live streaming could be helpful, and maybe people would be interested in watching.
Oh, guaranteed. I went and watched the one you did, just a couple days ago. And you had the I can't remember the name of the game, but it was a CDG.
Oh, it's Europe in Turmoil. I still have it set up.
Yep, yeah. And you had that out. And I think that's a wonderful idea.
I would have to contact you to see, because I filmed that video using the YouTube live streaming feature. The only thing that I didn't like, it comes out in 720p. I don't know if you can get it in full high definition would be nicer, but stuff like that would be nice. And other ideas that I have, if that thing flies, for example, there's videos of wargaming that can be done, which don't have to be long, but could be really interesting. For example, just a video on the map design of a game. Take a map by someone like Mark Simonich, for example. Take the Holland 44 map. That would be nice if we could do a video where the map designer is telling you what the importance of these map features are in terms of game strategy. I mean, after all, the landscape dictates the strategy, right? So just 15 minutes flying and gliding over the map, showing different points. And that I think that would be interesting. And that is just showcases how interesting these games are. These games are deep because they have the history embedded in them. And it's reflected in their components, and the map and the counters.
You also set up like a camera on a rail type system for smooth movements, didn't you?
Yeah, I have a 3-slider system that I set up the camera on. There's 2 slides that go vertically, and then I have a 3rd slide that is attached to those 2 slides that goes horizontally. And then I attach on that slide what's called a fluid head, which you move it and it gives really fluid and smooth movements. That's what I used yesterday. That's that's where I film all my gaming videos. And I don't have any secrets. I may do one day a video on how to make this table. I mean, it's work intensive, but it's not really that expensive for if people want to go ahead and do it, because the great thing about it is I have the camera set up on this slider, and if I have to show like the top part of the map, I just slide it and hit the record button. Don't have to worry about knocking down counters or anything. So it's really a handy system, and I'm really glad that I took the time and effort to build it, because it makes my life a lot easier.
Yeah, James Brazil says, love the war game maps. That would be amazing if you did a video series like that. Kabuki Kid says, what is preferred for a paper map? Laying plexiglass on top, or roll out clear PVC sheet? I actually have a Lexan plexiglass for paper maps that I like.
Yeah, the Lexan I think is the thinnest one you can get, right? It's like a 1/32 or 1/16 of an inch. Yeah, I have Lexan too. But however, if you're filming videos of war games, you probably know, Chief, better than everybody, that plexiglass can be a pain in the butt because of the reflection of the lights that you're using.
Yes.
So what I'm using now, I'm not using plexiglass. I'm just laying the paper map on the magnetic board. That's why I insist. The magnetic board is wonderful. And there's these little small round magnets. Let me see if I can pull one around here. See if I can see one out of. Let me just get one here. Just a second. Here. Okay, there's these little small magnets. Let me see if I can. Do you see it there?
Yes.
Very small, almost unnoticeable. You place it on the corners of the map or wherever the map is popping up, and it works wonders. And then I don't have to worry about glare anymore because I'm using the paper map and it looks very flat. So I place these on the paper maps and on the player aids that I have on the magnetic board. And even for people who are not filming, who are just playing a game, the convenience of having your map and everything on a magnetic board, and then if you have to stow away the thing, you just take on the frame, the magnetic board, and put it somewhere else. So I think it's great. I just fell in love with this system, and I use it all the time.
Perfect. Let's see. Let's see. Well, it's funny. Kabuki Kid brings up there's and I've seen this guy. There's a YouTube channel where the guy tries MREs from all over the world and all the way back sometimes to World War II, Vietnam. It is amazing. It's addictive. You end up seeing like MREs from China. Meals ready to eat is what an MRE is. So he brought that up. I would agree. That's a great show. I can't remember the name of the show. It's something like MRE something. Let's see. I use a John Connor says, oh God, I use an old digital camera to make my let's just say my crappy vids. I'm no pro.
Let me do. I know John. John is an avid subscriber. Okay, John. Hey, John, give your iPhone a chance, man. People, I am a victim of subestimating the power of a cell phone, specifically an iPhone. For this, I mean, I know the quality of a DSLR can be not a lot better, but for what is really good quality, you can get a hell of a quality video from your iPhone. I have right now an iPhone 8, and the great thing about the iPhone, when you're filming a war game, and normally playthroughs, my favorite videos are playthroughs because I'm playing the game. The iPhone doesn't get in the way of the playing because it's so low profile. And then you get in return a huge monitor. When you see the iPhone, the monitor is all this. If you have a handheld camera, it's going to have that flip thing, and the monitor is this little thing, and the camera's a bulky thing. This, you place it on a desk tripod, and that's your monitor, and it's hard to miss. And I encourage people, give your iPhone a chance because it's so easy to make videos with the iPhone. So give it a shot. If you don't have an iPhone, you have a Galaxy camera. I think I've heard the Galaxies are really good cameras too, the video cameras, and give it a shot.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of I know on the whiskey side of stuff, there's some guys that just use their iPhones for that exact reason. They're great video. They're easy to run, and they'll even do live streams with them. So,
yep.
Perfect. Now I've got a question. Do you? I play all types of games. For instance, I have Gloomhaven on the table now, and my son and I are going to start working through some of this this monster campaign from Gloomhaven. Do you play any games outside of wargaming, and if so, what kind?
Here in my household, my sons, their favorite game is Settlers of Catan.
Sure.
So we play that a lot. What other thing I've played? I've played a couple of Euro games, but Settlers of Catan is the one that gets everybody on the table because then I have my nephews. They like it too. So that's the game around here.
Awesome. Let's see. James says the iPhone and the Galaxy are a great way to start. Very true. Kabuki Kid also says so. Let's see. Dave says, you guys ever do old fantasy war games, the old ones such as War of the Ring, the 1980s version, Dragon Pass, Barbarian Kings, Valley of the Four Winds, Swords and Sorcery? Not for me, not so much. I'll do some role-playing stuff, and my 11-year-old son loves role-playing stuff, so I'll do that. What about you, Jose?
Okay, the closest thing that I've played is a game called Titan originally by Avalon Hill, where you recruit your legion of monsters. And my son likes that game a lot because it has a strategic level where you're moving your legions on the map, and then when you resolve the battle, you go to the tactical maps, and it brings a lot of tactical maps. So that's the closest thing to fantasy that I do. I have some science fiction games also, but I haven't really taken a look at them. I mean, I prefer personally the historical base games.
Got it. So John Connor says, I'm so late to the game. I'm just an old solo playing Space Empires. And then he says, I'm a terrible person.
I don't know. You're not.
No, he's not. That was fun. Let's see. There's some talk about you guys can read the comments. Some other folks using their phones and what types. Let's see. Kabuki Kid says Titan was actually originally by Gorgon Games, then moved to Avalon Hill. All right, some good information.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Avalon Hill. Okay, they're just talking about the Dave Trampier art. Love the Tramp art. So you with your family, you'll do Settlers and some things, but you're definitely leaning toward not even sci-fi war games. You like the historical dive.
Yeah, I play with my older son. We play Twilight Struggle, and I always get the Russians, and I always lose with them. I'm a terrible. People think I'm good playing war games. I suck at most war games because I have to concentrate people on the game, the video, the editing. So the strategy is, it's nice. You develop good strategy and good tactics after you play a game a few times. So, and I understand that, but we play Twilight Struggle, and we enjoy that a lot.
Well, and you had a good point earlier too. I think one thing where wargamers get the short end of the stick is from other folks is that I've had many wargamers teach me a game. And they're so open and approachable because it really does a war game. I know there's a lot of solo games out there, and I play those, and I love them. But to have an opponent to play against is really the fun and the shared experience. And I agree with you. Winning is of course I'm trying to win, but I've had memorable experiences where I thought I had it, and I get taken out right at the end. And so winning, although being the goal, is not what makes it enjoyable for me. It's that enjoyed shared game time, game space.
Yeah, that's the same for me. Winning is great if you win, but if take a game like, for example, Carl Paradise's Poland French campaign, I'll probably be the masochist who's going to take the Poles, because winning is, I really don't care if I win or not. It's the experience. I really like to experience the game and look at it at how does the designer, reflect this particular situation and look at the clever mechanics he uses in making the game interesting, stuff like that. But after, it's a game, but it's related to history. So I like games, I like history. So just playing the game is enough for me.
Now, another thing I like to discuss is kind of behind the scenes, and I always like to know what someone does for their day job. I'm a police sergeant, been doing that 23 years. What is your day job?
I'm a federal prosecutor, senior litigation counsel, they call it, because I'm one of the older guys in the office. So I've been a federal prosecutor for the last 22 years in San Juan, Puerto Rico. The reason why my channel was kind of off since summer after I came from Consim World is I had to bunker down and prepare for a very important case in my office. It was a murder for hire case, and just to show the people how small the world is, the victim was a Canadian businessman who was murdered in the streets of Old San Juan in 2005 by a person hired by his wife to murder him, because he and his wife had, before getting married, they signed a prenuptial agreement which stated that in the case of any of the parties' deaths, the other party would get a third of the estate of the deceased. And his estate was valued at $24.1 million, hers at 65. So she hired a hitman. The hitman killed him, and things went south afterwards. She took off for Italy. And this is where I say the world is so small. Because I remember this is case in 2005. She was arrested in 2013 in Spain. we had to lure her to get her into Spain with she had a in Italy, the way she would make money to sustain herself, she had a travel agency, and she arranged excursions of Jews in Europe, and her business was a rabbi in New York. Well, the rabbi got in trouble with the law. He started to cooperate, and then the FBI learned that she was his partner, so he helped set up a lure scenario. Lure scenario is a fake scenario, a fake excursion where she was going to be the travel guide, and she had to fly from Italy to Spain. Well, why was that important? Because in Italy, they would never extradite her because of the laws there. So when she arrived in Spain, she had a warm welcome by the FBI, who was there with the Spanish authorities. And then she fought extradition for 2 years. And finally, in 2015, she was extradited to the United States, Puerto Rico, and we had the trial that ended two weeks ago. She was convicted, and her sister and the other fellow who hired the hitman. The hitman was actually testified. He was a cooperating witness, so we had the hitman, and we had a lot of other evidence. So,
wow,
I'm a prosecutor. That's what I do for a living, and so it's a pretty tense job. So, wargaming is a way to relax and do something different, as music is also.
There you go. And I know you told me you were a public defender before you went into federal prosecution.
I was a public defender at the state level for 5 years, and then I jumped there to the other side, to the dark side, as they say. As the defense attorneys say, of course.
Yeah, of course. You're not on the dark side when you're able to take on someone that's hiring a hitman. Now, somebody, who was it? And I'll say Ghost, because I'll get Euripides. I think I got that wrong. Ghost said, dang, so being rich ain't necessarily such a blessing. It'll get you killed. I will tell you, I've seen, in my line of work, I've seen a lot of people that think money is going to make them happy. And I'm telling you, money never makes you happy. It can. I've seen people crushed when they get their money, whether that's through illicit drugs or whatever else, that they think they're going to be happy. And then when they have a lot of money and they're still not happy, you want to see folks that spiral out of control. So yeah, money is not the route to happiness.
And one thing Dan Pancaldi connects into all of this, Dan, he's Canadian, like the victim. Well, now, the victim was from another part of Canada. But Dan knows about the case. He's my good friend. And then part of the evidence I had was these emails between the widow, who's in Italy, and her family. And then in Italy, she's doing some funky stuff to try to pass as a Jew, because then she wants to move to Israel, and she gets all these false documents from the Jewish community of Florence. They're all in Italian, all the false representations she made. So I tried with Google Translate to translate some of those, but Google Translate only goes so far. So I told Dan, can you read that, translate this paragraph for me? Because this is really good stuff for us. So Dan helped out with the translations, because he's Italian. The man knows English, Italian, and even French.
Amazing.
So I have to thank Dan for his services. Justice was done also because of him. And it's great, that connection, that the victim is Canadian, Dan is Canadian, and the Italy connection, and he's Italian. So that was a lot of fun for me during the case, being able to tap into Dan to help me out.
That is nice triangulation. John Connor has a question. Joe, what do you think about DG games?
DG games, decision games?
I think so. Joe, confirm you're meaning decision games. I think that's what you mean. We'll wait for him to come back. Let's see. Kabuki Kid, I envy polylinguals. Yeah, I'm not polylingual. I would agree. I envy as well. A lot of comments about well, Dave says he didn't know Italy had such poor extradition treaties. Let's see. Oh, and then Dave also says he bets that you'll do very well at the detective board game, Joe.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
Oh, let's see. That would make a great hidden movement game. Woman or man on the run trying to flee capture. Yeah, there's some good hidden movement games out there. Yeah, John says yes, decision games.
Okay. Yeah. Before I answer that, I told my fellow I had a fellow prosecutor with me in the case. I told her, if we win the case, they probably make a movie out of this case. If you go to the internet and you Google pink skirt murder, because pink skirt was a business this lady had. Pink skirt murder. It's going to come up. It was in nighttime or night. It was in many programs. It was a high profile case. So I told my fellow prosecutor, if we win the case, this may be a Hollywood movie. If we lose the case, it's going to be a movie in the Lifetime channel. So we better win the case. and answering John as to decision games, well, I have a lot of their magazine games. I'm kind of a sucker for magazine games, actually. And the reason is, when you think about it, we are one of the few hobbies that you get the hobby in a magazine. I mean, if you like cars, and even your hobby of the whiskey, there may be magazines about whiskey, but you don't get samples of whiskeys in the magazine, right?
True.
So, and if you like cars, you don't get a car in a magazine. We get a game in the magazine, and you get a historical article plus other articles. So that for me is just a win-win. Of course, now I know what other people say. Oh, but the games are not fully play tested. Sometimes that's true. But what I see about magazine games, those are the testing grounds in our hobby, because you see a lot of innovation in some of them. I mean, some of them are real dogs out there. I mean, I've played magazine games that I would not even want, but are really innovative games. I did a video on a game about the invasion of Crete. It was a Joe Miranda design, solitary. Had a lot of fun with that system. And when you think about it, there's a lot of magazine games that throughout the years came up, started as magazine games, starting with Panzer Group Guderian, SPI, the hidden strength of the Russian units. And then they had the question mark on the front side. You would flip them, and then the strength. That concept, that started in the magazine game. So I think they have a place in our hobby. And decision games, well, they have, I think, 3 magazines. I think it's World at War, Strategy and Tactics, and the other one is Modern War. So I pick and choose the ones that I'm interested in there. As to their box games, well, one of my favorite games of all time is Decision Games RAF, John Butterfield. Mm-hmm. I even made sequence of play cards. I'm going to show you one here. This is that makes the game play a lot easier because it's a solo game. It has like 33 phases that if you want to dive into the rule book all the time, be my guest. But with the sequence of play cards, you put them in the order of the phases and just flip the cards and it tells you what to do. So I love that game, RAF Battle of Britain. And I think I have a few more of their games. I think I have the Tarawa game, which I did a video on. So yes, I have some of their games. I have a lot of their magazine games, mostly.
James has a question for you in reference to the magazine games. He says he was thinking about looking into that. What would be the best one to start with? Do you think a magazine that would be maybe good for someone new to those type of games?
Well, Decision Games has a lot of medium to low complexity magazine games. They have a series of games, folio games, which are pretty easy to play if you like the hex encounter type of thing. So if you're starting wargaming, I mean, in wargaming, there's so many different kinds of games, but normally, you crave for a hex encounter game. You want to push some stacks and stuff. They have those folio games there, so you can check those out. And but I think Against the Odds has some games also that are not very complex. I did a video on they had one about Wake Island, which was kind of interesting. Islands of the Damned. I like that system. It's a Stephen Conliffe game. See, another innovative solo system that came out of a magazine game. So there's a lot. I think the companies realize that to appeal more to the general public and to war gamers like me, that I don't have a ton of time to invest in a really complex game. they're focusing on medium complexity and sometimes even medium to low complexity games, and they're making it a lot easier every time to get into them.
I agree. Some more questions here. Kabuki Kid Joe, what is the game you would recommend to someone who is completely new to war games? What would you show them?
Completely new to war games. Oh man, that's a tough question.
That is. I would imagine they've maybe done some Euro type games or something, but you know, they catch a video and they ask you.
Boy, let me think about that.
I'll let you think. You know,
for example, if you like aerial combat, Down in Flames, it's pretty simple and it's pretty fun. And
yeah, a lot of times I'll ask folks what I always explain to them in theme, and then for me, I'll tell them theme would be, do you like naval or submarine or World War II, or do you like these? You know, a lot of folks, I know they say that Twilight Struggle isn't a quote war game, but I've had a lot of folks say, whoa, this is totally new, this historical thing with cards, and it's really opened the hobby to a lot of folks, and they realize how much history can be captured in those card games, in those CDGs.
See, it depends on what you like and what you're interested. But the Twilight Struggle, people get caught up in the discussion whether it's a war game or not. It's a historical board game. Okay, that's and you notice it's not a Euro game because you don't start. Everybody doesn't start with the same resources with different colors. You know, Euro games are great in terms of mechanics, and I think war game designers are borrowing a lot of those mechanics, which are nice. But for example, I have a Euro game called Trajan, which it's a resource building worker placement game. Everybody starts with the same resources. I mean, that's folks, that's not life. You know, not everybody's equal. Not all the countries have the same resources. When somebody like that who's used to play Euro games or used to play Settlers of Catan, you get into Twilight Struggle, the Russians have a complete set of problems different from the Americans, and they have different resources. They have certain advantages and disadvantages, and that's the essence, practically, of historical board gaming. The game is a representation of history. It's an abstraction of history.
That's a good way to phrase it, historical board gaming, rather than quantifying it as war gaming, because you're right, there's a lot of games, you know, World War II obviously is a war game if they get into it, but it's the historical nature. Let's see, a couple more questions. I saw one in here. Galena66 Joe, what do you think of, and I always mess up the Italian name, Vinto Nuovo games?
One of the games I have back there is that Stalingrad game. Stalingrad is my favorite World War II battle. I know there's the Battle of the Bulge, D-Day, the usual, but mine is Stalingrad. And when I say Stalingrad, not talking about Case Blue, the drive into that area, the southern Russia. No, I'm talking about the battle for the city. I did a video on the Last Stand Games Stalingrad game that came out. It's a subsidiary of Against the Odds. I really enjoy that game. It's a more refined version of Turning Point Stalingrad, that game by Avalon Hill. This one's, I really liked it. It's very refined. And so I'm gonna take a look at that. That's a block game. And normally block games are not very soloable, but this particular game has a solitaire system where the Russians are controlled by the AI. So I'm looking forward to that. I haven't even, still in its shrink wrap. So I'm interested in that.
I'll be curious if you like that. Marco and Nardo I always say his last name wrong. Marco did not like it. I enjoyed it immensely. But going in, it's much more of an operational feel, and the solo works well with the blocks, which I thought, wow, a block game solo, how's this going to work? But I enjoyed it. To me, it gave that crunchy feel of how do you get those last little areas in the city. And that the Russian deck is it's the timer. So when the deck's out, the game's over, kind of. There's one caveat, but yeah, I'll be curious. I would love to see your video on that when you get to it as well.
But it's an innovative game by an Italian company. And I think that's what what's important is it used to be the wargaming was all in the U.S. over here.
Yes.
Now you have people all over the world. Actually, I'm going to go to a convention in Spain in January. It's called the Second Bellota Con. It's the second year of the convention. It's in Badajoz, Spain. The organizer of the convention is his name is Sergio. He has a YouTube channel called Wargame Reviewer. It's in Spanish, a YouTube channel. I'm a Patreon to that channel, so I help out there, and of course a subscriber. And he's going to have Volko Runke going to that convention. So I'm looking forward very much. And there's Spanish gaming companies coming out with games, French gaming companies. There's wargaming going on in Germany, also in Great Britain. So it's a worldwide phenomenon. I mean, we're not the masses, but we have people all over the world who are interested. And the way I see it is, it's a way of knowing the world. You know, knowing people better. When you're in a relationship with a person, you want to know who that person is, right? So you want to know the history of that person. So we're in a relationship with the rest of the world. So when a game comes out, for example, as to the Philippines rebellions there after World War II, I'm interested in learning about that because I don't know anything about that.
Yes.
And that's something that puts you in contact with other people, and you learn about their culture and history. So that's the fascinating thing about this hobby.
Kabuki Kid has a question. Why has nobody repurposed the system from Ambush? Always amazed me. Love the system. Of course, that's Butterfield and Eric Lee Smith. I actually had Eric Lee Smith on a interview, and he talked about how exhausting it was for them to put together, because there's multiple conditions that then change, and then those lead to the paragraphs, and then you're trying to tell that story on the game board as well, but leave it open enough for player exploration. He said it was exhausting. I've read some stuff where Butterfield said the same thing. And, I think you see a lot of those story-based games coming out now, and it wouldn't surprise me. He said they'd been contacted once even about a reprint, but of course they would have to dive in and fix some of the errata and different things that didn't, that they would want to clean up, and they weren't interested. And it sounded like it must have been exhausting.
I can see why, and it has to be exhausting. I can understand that. And then the downside is once you play a particular scenario in Ambush, you know what's going on. So it's like a one-shot deal, And that's a reason probably I haven't done a video because if I do a video on one of these games, I'm going to give away the scenario, right? But now we have other types of systems. If you check out DVG, they have their Warfighter series. And I think those games tell a pretty nice, interesting story. They have the Warfighter World War II. I think it has the potential of creating that story that develops. And you see that more also in the games by the Hunters and that sort of thing that people are getting into. I mean, if it's the story about the game that you like, you can look for that in those games that tell the story. But I definitely agree. I don't think it's worth it to go into that pain of doing program paragraph games now at this day and age when you have other resources. You can probably get the same result.
I would say, and I could see this working for a new version of Ambush if they took it and actually. And I know a lot of people don't like apps going with their games, but I could see instead of a paragraph book, an app, whereas when you hit this hex and you're in this condition or this mission and it just hits to that, not only would that be quicker and less fiddly, but would allow them to fix errata in real time. And they could even come back and say, hey, $10 tweak. We've added a submission to, mission 3 or whatever, and they could do some fun things there, but it would take a lot of dedication. I could see the modern tech bringing that around.
Yeah, I can probably see that happen too, yes.
But I know a lot of people don't like those. A couple questions, and then I know you have another gig tonight, and so we'll go through some questions. I'll let you kind of wrap up and talk about your channel and some things. and then we'll get you out of here. Let me see what we've got. So Ghost of Stalingrad Inferno on the Volga. That is that Vento Nuevo game. He says it's going for about 130 United States dollars, question mark. I thought it was a little less than that, but I'm going to tell you, mine was a review copy, so I don't know exactly how much it is going for. Let's see. Keith had to leave. John Connor had to leave. What's the next? Mark Garavagula. Sorry, terrible on that last name. My fault. What's the next gaming convention you plan to attend, Joe and Chief? I'll let you go first on that.
Well, the next one is that one in Spain. That is in January of 2019. It's a 4-day convention, January 24 to the 27th. It's in Badajoz, Spain. I was born in Barcelona, Spain, so I'm going to go a few days before to Barcelona to meet some people there that I know. I never returned to Spain after I was born there, so I'm really looking forward to that. Then I'll go to the convention, and then I intend to go again to Consum World in the summer again. I really enjoyed the experience, and everybody made me feel so well there. And John Krantz has that thing so well organized. I think I'm going to go every year if I can. So those are the two ones for now.
I may have to try that one. I don't plan on going to another board game convention guaranteed until BGG in Dallas of 2020. I've run into a weird thing where the whiskey channel's kind of starting to blow up, and we're starting to have we don't have confirmation on tickets yet, but like we had a distillery in Ireland that wants to fly my co-host and I out to do a week-long series at their distillery in at Waterford in Ireland. So we're getting some things that are moving us around even worldwide. So things have kind of been picking up there, and I've been taking a hit on the board game side.
So, but that's great, Chief. That's the problems you want to have in life, right?
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I mean, those are good. It's just I've had people saying, hey, your content's slowing down. And I'm like, oh, I know. And then I've got my co-hosts who are upping content on the Whiskey Show. I will say a funny little side note is I see so many parallels. It was funny when you mentioned there are whiskey magazines, and you're right, they can't send you samples through the magazine, but I see so many similarities in the hobby. Even when we got invited down to Austin for a distillery open, and there was about 500 distillery fans there, it had a very convention-like feel, and everybody was so nice and welcoming. And when you had mentioned there's nothing better than sitting down with, it's not, I'm a collector as well, but I don't want to just look at a game on my shelf. I want to play it and experience and rip off the shrink. There is a whiskey thing that's very similar where they say it's not whiskey until it's shared. Don't just leave it on the shelf sealed and look at it and say, ooh, I can't find that whiskey anymore. You're supposed to open it and share it with friends. And that's where board games and whiskey really interweave for me. Yeah. Let's see. Let's come back, and I know we've got to get you to a gig, and you got other things going on. Why don't you tell us some more about your channel, what's to come, what you plan on doing, where everybody can find you, and then any final thoughts, and we'll get you ready for your gig with your brothers.
Sure. Well, the channel is Stuka Joe. If you Google Stuka Joe, and you're going to find the channel. The channel, I intend to keep on doing videos. I've noticed that I don't know, you probably check the video analytics tool for YouTube. I mean, shorter videos sometimes are more effective than longer ones, and I've realized that. So I'm trying to keep them down to 15 to 20 minutes so I can send the message across, and if I edit the videos well enough, I can pack enough information there. I want to do playthroughs. Those are the ones that I most enjoy, and playthroughs. For me, the most fun way of doing them is to do a turn per episode, and I can probably pull that off and do a turn per day. So I could probably put out a video per day. And then the good thing about that is you get the feedback of the people looking at what you're doing and the strategies being followed. And sometimes if you're screwing up a rule, well, I screwed it up only in turn 1, and I got fixed by turn 2. I remember I did a 3-hour video once. That was a nightmare for Victory Games, the Civil War. So I want to do them one turn at a time. So I want to do playthrough videos, and I want to do other kinds of videos. Maybe that live streaming for the CDG solo method. I think I would like to see what people have to say about that, because that's a way of keeping that that thing alive about the CDG solo method, because we're always going to have CDGs coming out. I mean, they come out. We have 10, 12 of them coming out every year from different companies. So might as well keep that up. And anything that can help the hobby. I also like to share the technical aspects of the video filming and editing. I don't have any secrets as to that. So anything that will help people enjoy more their war games, it's all good with me.
Love it. Love it. We're getting a lot of love in the comments over here. I won't read them all, but everybody loves what you're doing, and kudos, and keep up the good work. A lot of folks thanking you for coming on to my show, and I want to thank you as well for taking the time. And I didn't say it was totally my fault. I didn't take into account that we in Kansas have daylight savings time. And so Jose was all ready to go, and I'm thinking, why is he ready an hour early? And I asked my wife, who's from Cayenne in Puerto Rico, and she said, "Oh, honey, you didn't factor in they don't have daylight savings time." And I was like, "Oh my goodness!" So again, I apologize to Jose for having
That's no problem at
all. Thank you so much, and Jose, at some point in time, I will get back to Puerto Rico, probably on a trip with my wife. Yes, sure. I would love to sit down. We'll have a meal, and hopefully we'll get in a game.
Sure, no problem at all, and we can put it on your channel or mine or both. Who knows?
There you go. It'll be worlds collide. Stay on the line. I'm going to stop.
Oh, one thing, and with Greg Schmidtgen's permission, I'll be using these flowery shirts.
Beautiful. Greg will love that. Those are great. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the live part. There's a little bit of delay when I do it. Go ahead and stay on the channel, and then we'll wrap up here. So thank you guys for tuning in, and thanks for all the great questions.